Peter Jennings has written powerfully about this, and he asks, will our political and public servant leaders be indifferent in responding to the Royal Commission's review? Peter Jennings highlights that in her 655-page report, Catherine Holmes argues that robo-debt, quote, was put together on an ill-conceived, embryonic idea and rushed to Cabinet. The misconceived notion that unreviewed discrepancies between the Australian Tax Office and the Department of Human Services income data, quote, represented mountains of gold. Peter Jennings was the hunting down money, was the Executive Director of the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, but he has worked at senior levels in the Australian Public Service on defence and national security. And Peter Jennings joins me tonight. Peter, there's been a relentless attack, indeed humiliation, of Scott Morrison to become the fall guy in all of this. But is it really a fault of the system?
I think there's a lot of blame to share around, Alan. There's no doubt that I think Scott Morrison didn't use the public service well as leader, partly because he had no confidence in the public service. And I'm sure you'll remember that famous meeting just a few days after the 2019 election when Morrison called together the senior heads of the public service and said, look, you guys do the implementing and we'll do the thinking. And I think there was too much of that. There was too much freewheeling on Morrison's part. But the blame on the public service side was we had organisations that simply had forgotten how to do complex policy well. I completely agree with your introductory assessment that there is almost a cynicism when it comes to dealing with average Australians, that somehow they're always going to be in the wrong, and that put a lot of people offside. And they were too obliging to ministers. They were too quick to help, not quick enough to say, hang on a moment, let's just think about this. So every child shares a prize. There's lots of blame to go around in the robo-debt story. And one final point to make, Alan, is simply to say it's not just one incident. It's not just robo-debt. I can see examples of this happening with the current government in terms of policy making on the fly, and a public service which doesn't seem to have the strength to kind of slow that process down or add better ideas. And so the whole process of public policy making in Australia, I think, is getting poorer and poorer as time goes by.